Welcome to Build Your Dream Network. I'm Kelly Hoey. I see people struggling to connect effectively all the time, so I created this podcast to help you master your network building needs. Whether you're seeking a new job, looking for a promotion, or scaling your business, you need a network, and you're in the right place to get the advice you need. And don't worry, my advice is real, it's actionable and practical because it's the advice I follow and is what has transformed my career from the traditional to the unexpected. So let's get started. This week on the podcast, I want to convince you to approach networking like a marketer. Now, this may sound counterintuitive, but hear me out, Build Your Dream Network listeners. I have not tossed aside my essential message that networking is all about relationships. I'm most definitely not equating networking with the flash sales, limited time offers, and promotional campaigns frequently associated with marketing. I'm not suggesting you turn your networking into sales. Though some of you are selling yourselves much too hard these days, but more on that later. What I'm suggesting this week is that you think like a marketer. Now, not just any marketer, but a savvy, strategic marketer. Someone who understands that the customer purchasing or that marketing funnel, it's not linear. Our customer journeys are chaotic and more than a little unpredictable these days. Here's how strategic marketers think about marketing. They first develop a strategy. That means thinking about the goals and objectives. That means researching the target audience and understanding what a particular audience cares about. Being strategic means deciding the marketing tactic, be it video or social media or a good old-fashioned ad buy. It means deciding the tactic after all the other analysis. But back to networking. If you want to be strategic in your networking, don't simply rush out to network. Think like a marketer. Here are some of the questions a strategic marketer seeks to answer before they recommend a marketing solution. First, what's the goal and/or objective of the marketing efforts? 2, who is the intended or desired audience the client is seeking to reach? 3, what does the audience care about? 4, where is the client's desired audience hanging out? 5, how and what is the right way to speak to that audience? Quite simply, marketers define the goal first, then research the audience before they decide on the tactic. Now, if you just substitute networker for marketer, what does it sound like? If you've got your copy of my book handy, flip to chapter 3. It's the chapter titled How and Where to Start. You'll see my goal, network, tactic, networking approach has a lot in common with a strategic marketer. Earlier in this episode, I noted that some of you are selling way too hard right now. Your networking has more in common with a schmoozy sales approach than anything connected to networking. Prime example, the individual who continuously pitched me his web services on Instagram in comments on all my posts, as well as direct message, endlessly, without ever asking if I needed help. It was the networking equivalent of buying every billboard in town. And his campaign efforts only stopped because I blocked him. Another example of networking that smells more like sales. LinkedIn posts asking everyone who wants more connections to leave their name in the comments as if somehow a quantity of followers in and of itself is a useful networking tactic and a useful metric. And one more, barging into a Twitter conversation to pitch your product, which has nothing to do with the subject matter of the Twitter conversation you just interrupted. If you've been guilty of doing any of these things, perhaps it's time to stop. And no, I'm not making any of this up. Bad manners or bad networking, like poorly conceived marketing efforts, are annoying and correctable. To think like a strategic networker and improve your networking efforts, here's what I suggest you start doing today. As our networking is almost 100% digital right now, use social networks to listen, observe, and learn. Get into the mindset of the audience you're seeking to reach well before you plan how you're going to contribute to the conversation. Listening and observing has another benefit. You'll spend more time figuring out where your audience is, and that will save you time later. You can't be networking everywhere all the time, which leads to my next point. Be consistent. Strategic marketers know that consistency grows a loyal following, and smart networkers know that consistently showing up, being helpful, and reliable builds trust and keeps you top of mind. Finally, back to that consumer purchasing journey. It's messy, as developing human relationships can be. It's why you need to know what goal you're actively pursuing, as sometimes you don't know when or how or which of your networking efforts will pay off. Knowing what you're trying to achieve is what gives you the stamina to hang in there through the uncertainty. Before I sign off, a shout out to Tara Hunt, founder of Flywheel, and her Smart Content Strategy webinar, as it was the spark for this episode of the podcast. Approach your networking like a strategic marketer, and I'll see you back here again next week. Thank you for listening to Build Your Dream Network. Stay connected and don't miss a networking insight by subscribing to the podcast. And while you're there, I'd love you to rate and review the show too. Are you looking for more networking advice? Pick up a copy of my book, Build Your Dream Network. It's your guide to modern networking. I'd like to hear your networking questions, tips, and ideas. Connect with me via my website, jkellyhoey.co. You'll find links to all my social media accounts, plus a contact form to email me your questions. I'm Kelly Hoey, and I'll be back again next week to tackle your networking challenges.